The Gospel of the Lord. Happy 4th of July. And it's just a great and awesome day that we have here today to celebrate the birthday of the United States. Such a great nation founded on Christian values and Christian virtue. Today's day, there isn't too much recognition of that Christian value, of the Christian foundation of the United States, but it doesn't take long to figure it out. The goodness of this country and the sacrifices that so many people have made to keep this country going and to help this country grow in goodness. And so our country was founded on freedom for religion, not freedom from religion. It should be very evident to us to this very day by our very founders and how our founders practiced their own faith. That in itself speaks volumes of what they valued, the ability to practice your own faith in this country, because when England was the rule, it was England's faith, the Anglican Church, that you must be obedient to and must serve. And so freedom for religion, to be able to practice your faith, is one of the foundational standards of this great country. Before this, never has it been tried. And even after this, they tried many other things, but never reached such goodness. And because of our freedom for religion, we have come to learn how to love one another. We have learned the hard way by the steps of our founding fathers to know that we are dependent upon one another. When they came out and they had to live in the wild, and a farmer did not have such a good crop, a farmer had to learn to rely on his neighbor for the food. And then the next year, that farmer may not have had a good crop. And so we knew and understood to love one another, that each person is something precious in our society and brings some value. No matter where they come from, what walk of life, what culture they come from, it is something that is added to our culture, and a culture we do have. Because our culture is founded on the words of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and all the greats who have gone before us. And so we do love one another as men created equal. Men created equal. By the very fact that as a nation we understand that, and by the very fact that our founding fathers acknowledge that. You know, some people complain about slavery. Yes, it was wicked, utterly evil. But they complain, why didn't you get rid of it right away? Eradicate. Right? Eradication causes suffering. And it tears apart a society and a culture. But all men, by the very fact that all men were created equal, that phrase put the nail in the coffin of slavery. It only took time for it to be actualized. By the blood of those soldiers in the Civil War. It was through the blood of Americans that slavery was ended. And it just didn't get ended here in America. The blood of those people here in America By the grace of God, God extended that blessing to nearly all the world, except for China and India, who still has slavery. And we allow them to tell us how bad we are. And we give them money hand over fist, preferring them and their slavery. Our nation is one of the greatest nations ever conceived. And because of this great change in the great country of America, knowing and understanding something very different, no one thinks the way an American does. Let me drive this home again. Nobody in the world thinks like an American, for good or bad, whatever you think it is. And there's a reason for it, because we were born in freedom. And when you are born in freedom, you see the entire world through those eyes. And what is freedom? We look at how God made us with free will. You ever get amazed by this? So many people will complain about, why did God allow sin in the world? Why is there so much evil in the world? It's not because of God, it's because of us. God was willing to risk sin, to risk slavery, to risk all the evils in the world so that we would have free will. And by that free will, love would enter into the world, because without free will, love cannot exist. And so by God giving us free will, He invites us all to love one another. And America dared to endeavor in this great risk with God on these great Christian principles founded in Jesus Christ Himself, would risk freedom so that we would learn to love one another, to care for each other, and indeed be attentive to each other. That we would find ourselves being generous as God has been generous to us. And so freedom is not the ability to do whatever we want, because that ideology is foreign to our country. That is not the principle of the United States. At the very inception of the United States was understood that with freedom comes responsibility. That the neighbor that is so different from you, you might need at one time. That you would have to learn, as we have learned the hard way and through much suffering, that we must love one another, to recognize the dignity in each other and the goodness in each other. As God created us in His own image and likeness, what a great gift that we have been given to be able to live free and to experience love, and to participate in love by extending that love in mercy and kindness for all peoples who wish to endeavor into this great responsibility. And in freedom we find sacrifice. The sacrifice that we see in the Civil War, the bloodiest war humanity has ever known throughout all of time. All done by the blood of Americans, for the good of others, for their freedom, to end slavery, and that we would learn to love one another. That is the purpose of this freedom as God designed it. There are people who wish to teach our children something very different. There are people who wish to say, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want to be. These are lies. There are people out there who would say that America is evil. Another lie. For we are no person, no country, no person, their value is not founded on the sins, but founded on the goodness of God and their strength to persevere in that goodness. God makes this invitation to use our freedom, to practice virtue, to raise each other up, and to encourage each other in goodness, to take care of one another. That's why America is one of the most giving countries in the world. And as a church, we participate in that giving by St. Vincent de Paul, Catholic Charities. We go to FACC and help them out and donate to them. It is all part of the American experience of Americans' goodness. What a wonderful gift that we have been given to practice our free will in such a great way, to give people hope and to reconcile ourselves with each other, realizing that we're all, again, we're made in the image and likeness of God. We are called to be in God's family. And that family goes far beyond blood relations. That we can look at our neighbor and to see family. Family in this great nation. Citizens. And then hopefully one day we hope to be citizens of the great nation, the great kingdom in heaven. This is something we all desire for each other. That is the American experience. Not experiment, experience. It is what we experience in our lives each and every day. And a false teaching, a lie, has entered into our school systems and into our society to take us away from such goodness, to steal away the purity of heart that we would have for one another, the good intention and the goodwill to help each other grow, and in doing so to help our nation grow ever closer to Jesus Christ and his ways. The sacrifice that all the people have done before us, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, to end the slavery of communism. Communism, it talks about offering these great things. It looks at faults, claims a lot of negative things about the United States, these tyrannical people, as they say. It doesn't seek to correct the behavior. All communism does is exchange hands of those who are powerful. It just makes those who abuse the lowly different people, but the abuse keeps on happening and at a greater rate. In the last 100 years, over 100 million people have been murdered by communism and socialism. And the United States is what takes a great stand against such atrocities and against Satan himself. We endeavor to do so in our own weakness, but nonetheless, we see our responsibility in helping our neighbor, our neighbor in our own community, in our neighbor throughout the world. How we help others in Africa, South America, in Asia, in India. How generous we have been. We have our faults, and we know we have struggles to this day, because we are fallen humans. But our country is founded on the principles that we endeavor to uphold. and that our Christian faith, our Catholic faith, challenges us so that we would be better citizens and a holy people, a holy nation. When we look at these readings, the Israelites fell many times and they did wrong and they strayed from God. As a society, we do. Every country has a black eye. Every country has things that they are ashamed of. Every person has something that they're ashamed of. That goes without exception. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We know that we strive for what is good and what is holy. And as citizens of the heavenly kingdom, we try to make this kingdom here below a little better. We express our patriotism in encouraging others to grow in virtue, in doing what is right and just in God's eyes. That is what this great nation does. This is what we endeavor to do. That is why I love the 4th of July. It has always been my experience that you go out on 4th of July. Isn't it an amazing thing? You go out, you go to the store, and people are happy. They have goodwill for each other. They don't have ill will. They're not angry at each other. They're just rejoicing in being in such a great country. How awesome it is to be in this country. And we hope that this country would call all people forth to the great kingdom of heaven, and that one day we may emulate that great kingdom. That we would realize that the vision of the fruits that we have through freedom, that love that we would express through freedom would be realized in our great country.